Today is Monday, which means our glorious weekend is over and we are smack dab at the beginning of another work week. Right side though, Monday also means, yep, it's Man Shit Monday. Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Man Shit Monday. Hopefully this will bring a little cheer to your otherwise boring Monday. I can't think of a much better way to relax after a long hard day than to sit outside on a nice evening with a nice glass of bourbon and a cigar. If you are like me and you like to sit down in the evening sometimes with a nice glass of bourbon to relax, or really any other adult cocktail for that matter, you've probably heard about large form factor clear ice. Now, before we go too deep into talking about ice, we need to touch on the subject of putting ice in whiskey. Because if we don't touch on this, I know people are gonna go bananas in the comments, and I just wanna try to head that off before we even get started. There are a large group of people out there that think it is absolute blasphemy to add any kind of ice to a good whiskey, any kind of water, any additive really of any nature. Some people think neat is the only way to drink whiskey of any nature, bourbon, scotch, any of that stuff. Me personally, I follow the same school of thought as the good guys over at the YouTube channel Whiskey Vault, which by the way, if you've never watched their YouTube channel, if you're into whiskey, great channel. Drink your whiskey the way you enjoy it most. Screw the snobs. It's your whiskey, it's your money, drink it how you want. That being said, I do tend to drink the vast majority of my whiskey neat. However, I do think some whiskeys hold up really well to putting a little ice in them. I think it can open them up a little bit. If it's a really high proof whiskey, it can kind of mellow it out just a tad. And here in Florida in the summer, it's really, really hot. And frankly, putting a little bit of ice in a drink just makes it more refreshing when it's hot out. And that circles us back around to today's topic: large form factor clear ice cubes and the best way to make them.
To the mountain.
Now you're probably saying, Jeremy, it's just ice. It cools the drink off. What the hell? Well, there are actually a couple benefits to large form factor clear ice. The large ice cubes melt much slower, which means you have longer to enjoy your drink before it gets all watered down and loses all its flavor. They also just make your drink look good. Now I know some of you were saying, that's a little frivolous. Who gives a crap what the drink looks like? It's all what it tastes like. And I agree, flavor is the most important thing. However, there are some psychological factors at play here. The better something looks to you, your brain is gonna play a trick. You're gonna enjoy the drink more. Your brain's gonna fool your mouth into thinking it actually tastes better. A lot of nicer high-end bars are starting to use custom clear ice these days. A lot of them are custom making ice to best fit a particular cocktail. So now what you're running into is there's a market out there for large form factor clear ice. I'm sure you've seen some of the stuff out there. You can buy them on Amazon. They look like this. They're these silicone kind of ice cube trays that are made to make big ice cubes for your bourbon or your whiskey or whatever drink you're having. They even make some that have like these big styrofoam things they go down in, which is supposed to create a perfectly clear ice cube. All these different things have a couple things in common. One, they're more expensive than they need to be. Two, they only usually make a few ice cubes at a time, so it takes forever to build up any stockpile of ice. And three, most of them that claim to make clear ice don't really work. You've also probably seen some people talking or articles or stuff online talking about the different ways to make clear ice. They've got people out there that say you should use distilled water, and distilled water makes the clear ice, and boil water or double boil water, or you get the dew off of a unicorn's horn during a full moon. There's all this just crazy stuff out there. I found that most of these just don't work. The method I'm gonna show you today, and by the way, I did not invent this method, it's just one that I found and I've tested out. It works really well, so I wanted to show you guys. It's cheap. It doesn't require any special water of any nature or anything like that. It's relatively easy. It produces good amounts of ice in one batch, and it creates very, very clear ice. Okay, I get comments all the time. Enough of me jawing. Let's get to actually making the ice. You're gonna need a couple things before we get started. One, you're gonna need a small cooler with a removable lid. I'll link the one I use. You can get it on Amazon for like 12 or 13 bucks. You could really use any small cooler, but this one is really cheap and it's like the perfect size that you can fit easily in pretty much any freezer. Second thing, you need a serrated knife of some nature, like a long bread knife kind of deal. Most of you probably have one laying in your kitchen somewhere. And the last thing you're gonna need is a hammer. Well, and a freezer, but I would think that would be obvious. It isn't obvious that you need a freezer, then maybe you shouldn't be playing with knives, so ignore this video. All right, so now that we have all our supplies together, let's jump downstairs in the kitchen so I can show you how to do this clear ice, and we can throw these things where they need to be in the garbage. And we're downstairs. So those things in the garbage. Things are crap, I'm telling you. First thing we're gonna do, get our Coleman cooler. How this method works is by directional freezing. Usually the reason you get cloudy ice is when you are using a standard ice cube tray like this, the water is getting frozen from all directions, so you end up getting air trapped in the middle of the ice cube. When you put your water in something like this and stick it in your freezer, the sides, the bottom, and all that is insulated, which makes it freeze from the top down. Because you're not gonna leave this in the freezer long enough to freeze all the way through, you're gonna end up with a block about this big on the top of perfectly frozen clear ice, and there's gonna be a little pocket of water at the bottom where all your air and stuff is still at that will drain off, and you'll see that part here in a little bit. But that's basically how it works. It works through directional freezing, and it really does work fantastic. So first step, you're gonna wanna take your Coleman cooler, take your lid off, and you're gonna fill it with water. You're gonna wanna leave it about an inch and a half from the top because you wanna leave room for expansion. You don't want to slosh around everywhere and stuff. And then you're gonna put it in the freezer for 24 hours. Now, quick note, I did mention this does not require any special water to work, and it doesn't. I've used just normal tap water and it worked fine. However, that being said, you might get clear ice. That doesn't mean your ice is gonna be the best it could be. Depending on how bougie and how snobby you are with your whiskey, I live in Florida. I will not make ice cubes out of tap water from here. Our tap water tastes like bath water. It's gross. I mean, it is very chloriney, mineral. It does not have a good flavor to it whatsoever. And when you use big ice cubes like that in your drink, the bad flavor of our tap water actually does change the flavor of the whiskey. So I use filtered water from my refrigerator. So you could use filtered water from your refrigerator. You could use like a big gallon of drinking water from the grocery store. Or if you want to get like ultra bougie, they actually do make water that is made from this mineralized type stuff that is basically the same water they use when they're proofing whiskey down. You could even use that, but that's gonna be some expensive ass ice because that crap is not cheap. I would just probably recommend cheap gallons of filtered drinking water, to filtered water from your refrigerator, or if you live somewhere where your tap water is good, then just use your tap water. It's not gonna affect the clearness, it's just gonna be a thing about flavor and taste. So we're going to fill this guy up with water, stick it in the freezer. Don't forget to leave your little 1.5 inch gap or so. We'll be back in 24 hours. Boom, 24 hours later, block of ice. So now we're gonna start making this into our cubes. The first thing you're gonna do is obviously get this out of the cooler so you can work with it. All you're gonna do, I do this portion over the sink. Actually, this whole process I would probably do over the sink because it can be a little messy with the water. I'm only gonna do this portion over the sink and I'm gonna move over there because the lighting's better, but when you're doing it at home, probably best to do the whole thing over the sink just for cleanliness. All you do is just turn it right upside down. Now, you just hear that fall? This has been out of the freezer for about 5 minutes. Sometimes when you turn it over, if you just took it out of the freezer, it's not gonna immediately come out. But you know, don't, I'm gonna wait to say that part. Don't immediately start trying to pry it out with a knife or banging it and trying to, just give it about 5 minutes. As soon as it falls just a little bit, it'll fall right out. So just turn it upside down and give it a few minutes. You just saw why you do this over the sink though, because the bottom of this is gonna have water still. So it's gonna leak out everywhere. See, if you did this on a table, all that shit would be all over your kitchen, and you don't want that. That's why I do that over the sink. This brings us to freeze time. You're gonna wanna make sure you have an unfrozen part in here. I found that about 24 hours is the sweet spot. If you take yours out and your block of solid ice is too thin, or if you're frozen too far all the way through, you can obviously, depending on your freezer settings, adjust your length of time. But I found 24 hours is about right. And you should come out with, you know, a good solid block of ice on the bottom, which you'll see here in a second. And then this top part is just a hollow little frozen bit. We got to get this part off and get down to the good solid piece. So I usually just get my serrated knife. This stuff actually is surprisingly cuts easy. Note myself, you're dealing with slippery stuff and a knife, so let's all mind our P's and Q's here. I don't want to. So you just kind of go around and clean off that top portion you just saw, which is just basically like a hollow cavern of water. And you can see what you're left with is, I mean, that's a clear block of ice. Come on, you know that's clear. Look at that. Look at that. I'm gonna drip water for you. Look at that. That is clear ice. That's about as clear as you're gonna get. We got all the excess off, and then now we're gonna start making our ice cubes. But for this, like I said, if I were y'all, I would do it all over the sink. I'm gonna move over there because I can get a better angle on the camera. Another beautiful thing about this particular technique is you do have a big block of ice. So you can really make it into anything you want. If you're making cocktails in taller glasses, like, you know, I don't know, I don't drink any of that stuff, I just drink whiskey, but if you are drinking some kind of tall glass cocktail, you can make these into any shape or size you want because you're starting with a big solid block of ice. Now, me personally, I just drink whiskey in glasses similar to this, so I just get mine into big cubes that are about big enough to fit into a highball glass or whatever you call these things. And the easiest way to accomplish that, and this stuff, I was actually amazed at how easy this is to do. You take your serrated knife, and again, be careful. You pick about, you know, how big of a dimension of cube you want, and you just lightly go back and forth a little bit. Just a few times. I'm not pushing down really hard. I'm just kind of going back and forth, sawing a little bit. You want to score it, then you're going to take your hammer and you just lightly tap the blade. And there you go. It just splits, and you should have seen I wasn't hitting that very hard or anything, but it just breaks it right along where you had it pretty much. And then from there, you got your big strip. You want a cube, you just come over about the size you want your cube. Same thing. Saw it a little bit, get a nice little score, and then just, you know, we went right through. See what I'm saying? I did not hit that hard. Now you have a nice block O to put in your whiskey. So you just carry on and do that with the rest of the ice. I'm gonna speed this up so you guys don't have to sit here and watch all this, but I'm just gonna do this through the whole thing real quick. There you go. And out of that one block that only took a couple minutes to break up, I've got 12 big blocks of ice from that one sheet of ice we had out of there. So this is making well more than most ice cube trays that you put in your freezer, and they're perfectly clear. And I think the imperfect kind of broken edges actually kind of hit light and stuff, and I think they really look pretty cool. Personally, I think this is the absolute best way to make clear ice. And say you make these, and then you go, well, crap, that doesn't really fit down in there just perfect. See, it doesn't go. It's simple to shave these things down a little bit. You can just take it, watch your fingers, and just lightly shave down a couple of the sides a little bit until, there you go. Boom, fits in there just perfect like. So after all that's said and done, you've spent about 13 bucks, and you can reuse that cooler as many times as you need to and make just tons and tons of this, 12 blocks at a time. Now, personally, what I do is after I get done doing a batch of this, I'll put them in a big freezer bag and throw them in the freezer. And then I might do that a couple days in a row to build up a few batches of it. And then I won't need to do this again for a long time. So that's the method. I think this is definitely some of the clearest ice you're gonna see. It's really cheap, it's easy to do, and it's actually kind of fun. So let's take this back upstairs and we'll finish this video out. So that's it. That's all there is to making some really crystal clear ice. Save yourself the effort of trying to collect the dew off of the east side of a mountain during a solar eclipse and all that other nonsense out there, and give this a try. It is definitely the best way I've found to make big old clear ice cubes for that evening beverage. Maybe this will make that evening whiskey just a little more enjoyable. I appreciate everyone stopping by to hang out with me for a little bit today. I hope you enjoyed this video and found it useful. If you did, feel free to hammer that like button. That always helps us out. If you're not a subscriber, please consider doing so. We'd love to have you on board. I hope everyone is having a fantastic week. Enjoy that whiskey, and we will see you in the next video.